it sometimes make you cringe to watch the evening news? Sometimes just knowing what's happening in our world can be so scary. Today's guest knows that firsthand. Carolyn Williams York lost her son to senseless violence on the streets of Baton Rouge. What a tragic thing to know her story was one of those news stories that everyone watched in horror, hoping it wasn't their story. She woke up after months of grief, realizing her son Chad had been lost. After grieving, she decided, it was me, and what am I going to do to help other women with the same thing? So after writing her book, she now has Healing Heart Support Group. So when others see the news of a senseless killing on the streets in any city, she jumps in there and she reaches out to that mother or that family and she helps them with the recovery process. We are so excited to have you with today's episode of Life on Purpose TV. We have Carolyn Williams York. She is a nurse, she is a mama and a grandmama. She is an author and a national speaker. She has Healing Heart Support Group Ministry, and we're going to get to that in a little while. She has taken something that happened in her life and turned it into a way to help others with the exact same thing she walked through. But before we get to that, let's start with your early life and your early foundation. What was it like growing up, little Carolyn?
Oh, little Carolyn was always the type that knew that she wanted to, any situation that I obtained and came into, I knew I wanted to strive to be higher and always better. Was always had the entrepreneur spirit inside of me. Knew that I wanted to be a mother, knew that I wanted to be a wife, knew that I wanted to be a nurse. But I always was a child of God. My mom raised us in church. And so at an early age, I knew that I was different from everybody. Still continue to be around my friends and try and hang, but God would always speak to me and let me know when it was time. If I was getting out of his will.
Too far.
Yes, too far. He would always do something or always speak to me like, you know, okay, you're doing too much. You need to come back in.
Well, that's an amazing thing to be able to hear at such a young age in the midst of that. How do you think you were just close enough to him that you could hear from him? Because a lot of people hear from him but don't listen.
I think it was because of the upbringing and being raised. Every summer, my grandmother would my mom would send us to our grandmother's house in the country, which is called Tunica, Louisiana. And so we were raised with old Baptist members where you had to tell your testimony and sit on the front row, and you know, you had to know when God speak to you before you could get baptized. It wasn't until maybe I got in maybe my 30s or my 40s that I kind of in tune. I always was the type of person to read to. If it was something that I didn't understand or something that I was going through, I wanted to know why I was going through it, and I would always go to the library. I would always go to the bookstore and find a book pertaining to something, especially when I was like 18 and going through challenges of 18, 19, 20s, and your 30s with boys. Yeah. And being hurt, and knew that I had an alcoholic father but didn't want to be like him. Mm-hmm. Knew that my mother was abused by him and went through that with her, and knew that I didn't want to be that type of woman. Mm-hmm. But somehow, even through the midst of reading the books, I married somebody just like my father. With that, you know, a lot of positive things have came into my life. I'm the type of person, I sit back and I look over my life and I think about my 20s and I think about my 30s and my 40s and the pain that I endured in the marriage, in just dating, having Chad out of wedlock. Knew I wanted different for my son because of society and how they label young black men, and I wanted different for my son, and I thought that I was doing everything right. You know, as a mother, I thought that I was doing everything right. You know, when I had Chad, my mom, she took our children. People were like, why did your mama take your kids? But she took my sister, 2 girls, and she took Chad. Well, my mom had divorced my dad, and so her life became the grandchildren. And so every time we would go to pick them up, she would, no, that's okay, they're okay, they'll do it. So she ended up raising my sister's 2 girls and Chad.
By then, you're a nurse.
By then, I'm a nurse.
Working.
Exactly, I'm a nurse. By then, Chad is grown. But then we were hit with my mom having pancreatic cancer. And so that's when I really, you know, my mom raised Chad, but I was still his mother. I was at everything. I provided finances for him. He stayed with me on the weekends, but he wanted to go back home to my mom. But it's actually when I got a chance to know my son. And so I feel like I missed out on so much by allowing her to raise him. I missed out on knowing him.
How old were both kids at that point?
Chad was 20. Andrea was like 12, maybe 11, 12. And when I became the nurse, I felt like, okay, now I have this opportunity to take care of my children the way they deserve. I can do for Chad the way that I need to. I can do for Andrea. I began to make my plan to leave the abusive marriage. Chad, from 2003 all the way to he died in 2007. I thought that being a mother was enough again by being there for him 2, 3, and 4 o'clock in the mornings on the phone, talking to him about depression, and because his cry was that he wanted to be with Mama. Now during the time he was facing things as well. He had had a child. He had his bouts with jail, but then he got his GED, got out of jail, started getting his life together.
And you said he was doing a really good job?
Yes, was doing a really good job of being a father, had his second baby, which is a little girl, Shikari. As I've spoken with so many other mothers, it seemed like that's when Satan attacks them even more.
When they're starting to try to get their life.
When they're starting to try and get their life together.
Especially from a faith perspective.
Exactly, because he was raised in the church as well with my mom. He did know the Lord. So again, as being a mother, thinking that was enough, trying to help him with the depression of telling him that my mom doesn't want you with her. She wants you to raise the kids and do good.
Make a life for yourself.
And make a life for yourself. His brother had gotten out of jail, and he went to get his brother out of jail, and in particular I didn't really like him hanging with his brother because he was in and out of jail, and I know that Chad was in the streets, and Chad had his bouts with going to jail too, but I felt like, you know, he on a new path. Come on, let's just stay focused and let's not try and get caught up in anything, you know.
Now his brother is from a different family.
Right,
okay.
right. It's from a different family.
So he's hanging in the wrong crowd. You're already a little worried about him.
Right.
And he's struggling mentally.
Right.
And so it's just all kinds of mama worry.
Exactly. It's staying up and worrying and praying and calling and, you know, just praying he'll answer. And as a mother, I never stopped talking. And so in my family, we have knocks at the door. We have knocks that come. And so with death, knocks come, because when my aunt was passing, she knocked at the door, and we received the phone call a few minutes later that she had passed.
So just a knock, you hear it,
just a plain
nobody's
knock.
there.
Nobody's there. And so I had received that knock at the door.
So this is the day Chad passed.
That week, I had maybe like 2 weeks before then, I had received the knock, and I told one of the other nurses, I say, you know, someone in my family is getting ready to die. I say, I've received that knock, and I say, so now it prepares me to start praying and asking the Lord to prepare me for whatever's coming. Kind of felt like it was my child. Didn't want to believe that it was my child because I just didn't want to believe it, you know. So of course I was on him so much then, you know, trying to make sure he was doing the right thing.
In the right place.
Not in trouble, you know, being the mom, doing the mom thing. And so you know, that morning I hugged him and went to a concert, an outside concert. And so I told him about, you know, I didn't really want him with that person he was with. You know, I said, that person really is probably going to be the death of you if you continue to do that. We were at the concert having a wonderful time. And he had called me several times because he was in the mall trying to purchase tennis shoes for his babies. And so that's the last that I spoke with him. And I knew that it was getting late. His son had came down. I started feeling bad. I started having these pains all over my body. And I told the lady, I said, you know, I'm ready to go. I said, I'm not feeling good. I said, I can't get in touch with Chad. I said, he's not answering that phone. So on the way home, these pains were just getting worse. And so, of course, I got home and took my shower and got into bed and steady trying to call him, and the phone kept going to voicemail. And then at 1 o'clock in the morning, I received the knock at the door.
And it was a police officer.
And it was a police officer telling me that Chad had been involved in a homicide. And I'm looking at him just like I'm looking at you, like, okay, and where is he? And, you know, and he's just like, ma'am, do you really understand what I'm telling you? It was like a fog. I was in a fog, you know? It was like he was there, but I really wasn't seeing him. And so it wasn't until I picked up the phone and called my sister and said the words. It was such a pain inside of me that I could not understand, and I became instantly angry. I wasn't really angry with God, but I was like, I was ready. Spiritually, I'm ready, God. You know, why didn't you take me? 4 years after that, I was sitting on the sofa. I was depressed. I was on vacation. I was depressed. And I was like, reading my Bible. And so God took me to Deuteronomy 1, and it said in there where Moses said, move the children of Israelite. And so it said in here, and he was telling them that, you know, y'all have dwelt here long enough. God has blessed you. It's time for you to move on. And I felt like God was telling me, okay, I already told you that I wanted you to start this grief support group. And because I had been talking about it, but I never had written anything down, never put anything together. And so I felt like God was saying, okay, you sat here. You've been depressed for these last 4 years.
I was just going to say, you had put on the happy face every day, try to go to work, try to take care of Andrea, and you were doing all the things, but really you were grieving so
in the
much.
inside. You know, once, you know, Healing Hearts was formed, I began to pick my pen up and start writing, and made a phone call to this young man that I had been talking about the vision with, and he said, okay, I'm going to call you right back. And he did. He called me right back, and then a mother called, and I stayed on the phone with her all night.
Wow.
What has helped me, Beth, I can say, is Healing Hearts. The formation of Healing Hearts has really helped me because I'm able to connect with mothers. I'm able to connect with family members and what they're feeling and what they're going through, because I've been there. That's why that motto, I chose it, I've been there, because I've lost mother, I've lost father. I've lost the ultimate loss was my child. Healing Hearts has touched so many different areas and so many different people's lives and families and individuals.
Well, you know, we all watch the news and we see things that happen and we're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that's not me. And you woke up one day and it was you.
It was me.
And you wrote this book, and you sell this, and you share your story with Chad, and that's part of what you do, is get this message in the hands of people, and this is part of what you do to help raise money.
Exactly.
You know, there's a lot of news about North Baton Rouge shootings, violence, police relations. There's a lot of just reports out there, and people don't know what to do with that information. You're in the pulse of that. And I think most people wish they knew how to help a situation or how to view a situation through a productive lens. I mean, what can people do about these things that we know are problems? I know you're doing your thing that is so personal, but for those of us who watch the news and sit back and go, oh my gosh, something's got to give, what is that something?
I think that, you know, the neighborhood, you know, you hear people talking about the village. I think we've gotten away from that. I can remember growing up, the neighborhood raised us. My mom would get home late, or my dad would get home late, but we knew to go in the house. We knew to be in by dark. We knew not to be sassy and talk back. I think that we need to get back to a lot of that the respect of our elders. The neighborhood, allowing the neighborhood to raise our children, because you have a lot of mothers and fathers that don't want you to tell their children anything. So I think that if we would just open our hearts up again, and start loving our neighbors, reaching out and finding out who our neighbors are, because our environment plays a lot of the things that happen.
Wouldn't you love to help other families in a similar situation as Carolyn? She is the hands and feet of Healing Heart Support Group. So go to lifeonpurpose.tv and do one of two things. One, order her book. That helps fund her ministry. And do you realize that not only when someone loses a child in violence, most of the time stacked onto that grief is the inability to pay for their own kid's funeral. Carolyn can help with that. So go to lifeonpurpose.tv and either buy the book or pay for a funeral, so when the next child is on the news, Carolyn is prepared to help them.